On my way up the mountain to pray for a child, I happened to save an injured white snake. It possessed a human spirit guiding me to its hidden cave. Suddenly, a spiritual egg on the stone pedestal slowly floated into the air and drifted straight into my womb. The next day, a doctor diagnosed me as pregnant. 10 months later, I gave birth to twins, a boy and a girl. My husband also achieved top honors in the imperial examinations, becoming the chief counselor second only to the emperor. But just as my husband and I entered the palace for a reward, my elder sister, who had married into the palace, killed me with a single blade. It was only because after entering the palace, she was humiliated by the emperor's true love, not only losing favor and her position as empress, but also being cast into the cold palace. Jealous that I had become a woman of noble rank, she chose to drag me down with her to the grave. When I opened my eyes again, I had actually returned to the day we were choosing our husbands. In a daze, I heard my sister crying and begging to switch places. That poor scholar will become the chief counselor in the future. I want to marry him and become a lady of noble rank. I don't want to go to the palace to die. Father couldn't refuse her, so he had no choice but to give me the opportunity to enter the palace as empress. My sister was delighted with herself, not knowing that I too had been reborn in this life. Since my sister doesn't care for our sibling bond and wants to steal my glorious life from the previous one, then I will certainly not abandon this power delivered right to my doorstep. The gold-inlaid, jade-adorned palanquin carried by 8 men entered slowly through the meridian gate. The massive palace was draped in red silk, looking very festive. I sat with a straight back in the swaying phoenix carriage, maintaining a dignified posture. Shangguan Zhaoyue thinks the palace is a mountain of knives and a sea of fire, but she doesn't know that the chief counselor's home is a den of wolves. All the most magnificent treasures in the world are all within these palace walls. Which man could be more prestigious to marry than the son of heaven? Since she gave this chance to climb the social ladder to me, there is no reason for me not to take it. As everyone cheered "Long live the Empress," I finally snapped back to reality, to focus on completing the remaining ceremonies. By the time I returned to the bridal chamber, the moon was already hanging over the willow branches. I sat on the wedding bed, scattered with red dates and peanuts, waiting bitterly for a long time. The bright red dragon and phoenix wedding candles had already burned halfway down. I heard a eunuch shrilly calling out from outside the door, "His Majesty has arrived." A bright yellow figure slowly stopped before me. A large, slender hand held the jade ruyi and lifted my bridal veil. The man before me had a strong waist and broad shoulders. He was none other than the Emperor Ji Ziyuan. I rose and bowed gracefully. "Your Majesty." As I lowered my gaze, a glimpse of my porcelain white neck was revealed. Ji Ziyuan stared at me, momentarily stunned. His Adam's apple bobbed involuntarily. "Rise." He took hold of my wrist and led me toward the bedside. The serving maids blushed and immediately retreated. Ji Ziyuan pressed me down onto the edge of the bed. A flicker of desire ignited in his cold, clear eyes. Just as he was about to take the next step, a commotion erupted outside the door. "Your Majesty, a desperate report from the Ministry of War. Please take a moment to look." He loosened his grip on my sash and said calmly, "I have government matters to attend to tonight. Rest early, Empress. There is no need to wait for me." There was no disappointment on my face. Instead, I bowed respectfully. "Understood. I respectfully see you off, Your Majesty." Ji Ziyuan was taken aback for a moment, appearing somewhat surprised, but he said nothing more. Instead, he strode quickly out of the hall. My maid Chuzi stepped forward to support me. "Your Ladyship, this is your wedding night." I shook my head slightly, cutting off her words, signaling that she need not say more. I knew perfectly well that Ji Ziyuan had no urgent business to handle tonight. He was in a hurry to comfort his white moonlight. Xia He. The female voice that spoke outside the door just now was hers. In my past life, because her entire family was convicted of a crime, Xia He entered the palace as a servant to protect her. Ji Ziyuan kept her by his side as a personal maid. Not only could he shield her from palace intrigue, but he could also spend his nights with her. Once his imperial power was secured, he decreed that Shangguan Zhaoyue be sent to the cold palace and installed Xia He as his empress. However, Shangguan Zhaoyue's fate does not have to be my fate. On this lonely wedding night, I felt not a shred of embarrassment or unease. In this deep palace, an emperor's love is as cold as water. Whether or not there is affection does not matter. Having power is what truly counts, and I am certain that I will carve out a brilliant and distinct path for myself. The next morning, the concubines came to pay their respects. Ji Ziyuan had barely left last night when the news that I had fallen out of favor spread throughout the palace. Naturally, there were countless people hoping to see me humiliated today, but I had no intention of giving them their wish. I rose early and had Chuzi style my hair in a cloud bun and donned the 9-tailed phoenix hairpin, dressed in total elegance and imperial majesty. The concubines bowed to me with feigned respect, but they could not hide the disdain in their eyes. I sat on the throne, maintaining a composed smile, never once showing weakness. Just as everyone was seated, a crisp female voice came from outside. "Greetings to all the concubines. I come with an imperial decree. For the Empress, 10 bolts of shimmering silk, a century-old ginseng root, and a pair of mutton-fat jade vases. The concubines who had just been sneering at me changed their expressions immediately. Although Ji Ziyuan did not spend the night with me, he sent so many gifts today, which shows he clearly holds me in high regard. Even in Xia He's eyes, there was a flicker of hidden jealousy. In the entire hall, I was the only one who didn't change my expression for no other reason than that I hail from the house of the general who guards the nation. My father holds the military power. Ji Ziyuan's foundation is unstable, so he naturally must show me some respect. That he would try to placate me today was already within my expectations. After Xia He finished delivering the gifts, she turned to leave. I spoke up quickly, "Lady Xia He, please wait." Under Xia He's puzzled gaze, I stepped forward with a smile, took her hand, slipped the jade bangle off my own wrist, and placed it on hers. "Thank you for your trouble, lady." Xia He smiled and returned the courtesy. "My gratitude, your majesty." I said nothing more, watching her leave with a smile. But the moment Xia He took a step, she suddenly stumbled on the spot, falling to the ground. Summer clothes are light, and in this fall, her collar slipped open, revealing her fair shoulder. I took a step back in haste, feigning concern as I said, "Oh, are you all right, lady? It was not my intention to step on your hem." Though Xia He looked displeased, she still shook her head respectfully, preparing to adjust her clothes and stand up. The youngest noble Lady Lin stepped forward and pointed at the red marks on Xia He's shoulder, asking curiously, "What are those?" Having not yet been favored by the emperor, she naturally did not understand, but the other consorts certainly did. "Your majesty, this woman has defiled the inner palace. Seize her at once." Someone immediately chimed in, filled with righteous indignation. "In my opinion, such a shameless little vixen should be beaten to death immediately." Everyone began chattering at once, all demanding that Xia He be punished. Xia He, now forced to her knees by the serving matrons, turned pale. She wanted to explain, but couldn't get a word in. I listened with interest until a flash of bright yellow swept past the doorway. I then spoke up in a clear voice, "That is enough. Attendant Xia He is the emperor's own person after all. Let the emperor decide her fate." The concubines looked displeased, wanting to say more, but a stern voice echoed from the door, "The Empress is the only sensible one here. Xia He is my favorite. What grievances do you have?" Upon hearing this, the hall fell deathly silent. Everyone realized the truth. So on the wedding night, the emperor left the Empress behind just to spend it with a lady in waiting. Ignoring the hushed gasps around me, I smiled and stepped forward. Since she has found favor, why not grant Attendant Xia He a title? It will make it easier for her to serve His Majesty legitimately. Ji Ziyuan was stunned for a moment, clearly surprised by my immense generosity, but his eyes showed mostly approval. "Then let her be named Lady Xia and be settled in the Changchun Palace. This servant thanks His Majesty for his grace." The Changchun Palace is the closest to Ji Ziyuan's private chambers. The other concubines gnashed their teeth, clenched their fists, consumed with jealousy. Yet the newly titled Xia He showed no joy. She offered her thanks expressionlessly and left with Ji Ziyuan. Before she departed, she turned and shot me a deep look. Her gaze was dark and cold. I knew why she was unhappy. In this life, I exposed her illicit affair with Ji Ziyuan early on, making her the target of everyone's ire. She could no longer hide in the shadows, reaping the rewards without effort. Xia He's status was low. Ji Ziyuan could protect her for a while, but he cannot protect her forever. In places where Ji Ziyuan cannot see, Xia He has suffered many underhanded blows from the imperial concubines, and I have always played the part of a graceful and generous empress, stepping in to uphold justice for her whenever she has been wrong. Gradually, Ji Ziyuan's attitude toward me has grown warmer. In his eyes, I am a qualified empress. Not only do I manage the harem with perfect order, but I also help him protect his white moonlight. Yet, no one understands a woman better than another woman. Xia He sneers at my help, convinced that I am only using her to curry favor with Ji Ziyuan. But what she thinks of me is not important. I only need Ji Ziyuan's approval. On the 15th of this month, Ji Ziyuan unexpectedly took the initiative to stay in my palace. In the past, on the 1st and 15th, he would only go through the motions of visiting briefly before leaving. Because of this, I bathed and burned incense beforehand, and put on a sheer reddish-pink nightgown. Looking at myself in the bronze mirror, my eyebrows are curved like willow leaves, my eyes as sparkling as water, and every look or smile is enough to stir the soul. I do not believe Ji Ziyuan can remain unmoved or indifferent. Sure enough, as soon as Ji Ziyuan entered the room, he let out a soft laugh and impatiently took my hand to lead me toward the bed. As the reddish-pink gauze fell away, revealing a lotus-pink bodice embroidered with mandarin ducks, Ji Ziyuan's eyes widened. He gripped my shoulders with both hands, his lips drawing ever closer. Just then, a frantic knocking sounded at the door. With our moment ruined, Ji Ziyuan shouted in a fit of rage, "Insolent!" The knocking stopped instantly. Ji Ziyuan held me tight, preparing to resume what we had started, but then the sound of sobbing came from outside the door. Upon hearing this, Ji Ziyuan's body stiffened. He quickly climbed off the bed to open the door. It is freezing outside. Why have you come? Xia He immediately burst into tears and threw herself into Ji Ziyuan's arms. You weren't there, and I felt so anxious. If you don't believe me, feel for yourself. As she spoke, she took Ji Ziyuan's hand and moved it to the fullness of her chest. Ji Ziyuan gasped sharply and chided softly. You little temptress. I had already promised the Empress today. Before he could finish, Xia He covered his mouth with her delicate hand. The Empress is most magnanimous. I'm sure she won't mind me. Though her tone was humble, the way she looked at me was full of defiance. Ji Ziyuan gripped her slender waist and squeezed it. I knew then that his heart had wavered. I picked up my outer robe and draped it over my shoulders, saying indifferently, Go ahead, your majesty. There will be plenty of time ahead. I can wait. Ji Ziyuan gave me an apologetic look. Ningjing, I will certainly make it up to you another day. With that, he scooped Xia He up into his arms and strode away. I leaned against the doorway, watching their retreating figures in silence. Xu Si stepped forward, worriedly draping a cloak over me. My lady, why did you not make the emperor stay? I replied, those who wish to leave cannot be held. Do not worry, he will eventually come back. I can afford to wait. The next day, I didn't have to wait for Xia He to come and flaunt her success, but rather for the news that she had been grounded. News of last night's events had reached the Empress Dowager's palace, fighting for favor right under the nose of the Empress. The Empress Dowager would naturally not tolerate such a thing. When it comes to the Empress Dowager's orders, even Ji Ziyuan cannot defy them. Most importantly, the spring hunt is approaching. With her grounded now, Xia He won't be able to accompany the Emperor. Everything is going according to my plan. Ji Ziyuan will be mine sooner or later. At the end of the first lunar month, the imperial procession set out. As expected, Ji Ziyuan only brought me along. I come from the general's household, unlike the other ladies who just sit in tents drinking tea. When Ji Ziyuan was ready to depart, I was also dressed in red riding gear. I swung onto my horse, meeting Ji Ziyuan's surprised gaze. I arched an eyebrow and smiled, then cracked my whip first and galloped away. Throughout the entire hunt, Ji Ziyuan's eyes never left me. Especially when I shot a white fox, the intensity in his gaze reached its peak. That night, our passion burned like oil on a fire, entwined in intimacy, finally becoming true husband and wife. Upon waking the next morning, Ji Ziyuan had already left for the council chambers. I pulled out the blood-stained handkerchief from the couch and had Xu Si go handle it discreetly. It is not a good look that the Empress and I only consummated our marriage years later, and it would be quite embarrassing if word got out. But though Xu Si had left in high spirits, she returned looking completely drained. What happened? I couldn't help but ask out of curiosity. Before Xu Si could answer, the tent flap was suddenly pushed open, and Shangguan Zhaoyue marched in with a haughty air. Seeing her, I suddenly realized she is now the wife of the chief minister. No wonder she was able to attend the spring hunt. Drawing from my memories of my past life, she helped Zhang Tingfu perform one feat after another, rising to the rank of chief minister at an astonishing speed. Upon seeing me, Shangguan Zhaoyue wore a mocking sneer. Shangguan Ningjing, you aren't much to look at after all. It took you long enough to finally be favored. Xu Si lowered her head in shame and whispered her explanation to me. As it turned out, just as she was about to burn the cloth, Shangguan Zhaoyue happened to catch her in the act. Although the cloth was ultimately disposed of, the secret had already been discovered by Shangguan Zhaoyue. I patted the back of her hand lightly, signaling that she need not blame herself. I turned to Shangguan Zhaoyue and said calmly, I haven't congratulated you yet on receiving your title, sister. So? You've received your noble title? Then bitter days cannot be far behind. But Shangguan Zhaoyue didn't catch the hidden meaning in my words. She cast a triumphant glance at me and sneered, I want to see exactly how long you can hold on. I didn't offer a reply, merely smiling as I watched her walk away in triumph. Who will be the one struggling to hold on remains to be seen. After we returned to the palace, Xia He was finally released from her confinement. Changing her past behavior, she began to play hard to get, pushing Ji Ziyuan away. Yet that was precisely the trick Ji Ziyuan fell for, leading him to stay in her palace every single night. Having regained his favor, Xia He was immensely smug. At the royal banquet, she even overstepped and sat below me and Ji Ziyuan. I took a sip of wine, unbothered, watching with a smile as she and Ji Ziyuan exchanged lingering glances. What would it look like for lovers to turn into bitter enemies? I was very much looking forward to the show to come. Halfway through the banquet, Zhang Tingfu suddenly made an appearance. He knelt in the center of the hall and spoke in a clear voice. Your Majesty, I have a cousin, who back when I was of little means, helped me through my hardships with her needlework. Now that she is getting on in years, it is difficult for her to find a husband. I implore your Majesty to permit me to request a title for her, and take her as an equal wife, to repay the kindness shown in my youth. As soon as these words were spoken, Shangguan Zhaoyue sitting nearby turned deathly pale. I silently mocked her naivety. If marrying Zhang Tingfu were truly such a good thing, why would I have given him up so easily? She doesn't know that Mistress is a formidable woman. She had already borne Zhang Tingfu his firstborn son long ago and won over the hearts of Zhang Tingfu's parents. In my past life, after she arrived, I suffered more bitterness than I can say. At this very moment, the crowd watched this spectacle with keen interest, anxious to see how Ji Ziyuan would decide. But before Ji Ziyuan could speak, a sudden change occurred. A dancer, catching everyone off guard, suddenly pulled a sword from her sleeve and lunged straight at Ji Ziyuan. It happened in the blink of an eye, too fast for even the guards to intervene. "Look out!" Amidst the shocked gasps of the onlookers, I threw myself in front of Ji Ziyuan without hesitation, taking the blow for him. Ji Ziyuan hurriedly caught my swaying body while kicking the assassin away. Your Majesty, as long as you are unharmed," I said, clutching the blade in my chest. Weakly, Ji Ziyuan's gaze followed downwards, but as he saw the short sword, his expression froze instantly. He suddenly looked up at Xia He not far away. His eyes filled with disbelief, because the spirit snake emblem on the hilt was the Xia family crest. This blade belonged to the Xia family, and so, this assassin likely had ties to the Xia family as well. Xia He saw the emblem too, and collapsed to the floor terrified. Seeing Ji Ziyuan's attention drawn back to Xia He, I quickly whispered, "Your Majesty, it hurts so much." Ji Ziyuan snapped back to his senses and shouted aloud, "Send for the imperial physicians immediately." Every physician in the Imperial Medical Institute was summoned. After the elderly physician finished trembling as he checked my pulse, he replied, "Her Majesty the Empress is blessed with great fortune. The blade did not strike her heart. It is only that the child in her womb has suffered a shock. You still need plenty of rest." What did you say?" Ji Ziyuan asked again, unable to believe his ears. But before the old physician could answer, "Ningjing, did you hear that? We're having a child." With trembling hands, he scooped me up into his arms and declared to everyone in the hall in a deep voice, "Today the Empress has saved my life. If she gives birth to a prince, he shall be the crown prince. If she gives birth to a princess, she shall be my most honored eldest princess, granted a fiefdom of 10,000 households." As these words were spoken, the entire room erupted in shock. My heart finally settled, and I drifted into unconsciousness, feeling at ease. When I awoke again, I was lying in my warm and cozy chambers. Nearby lay many treasures recently bestowed upon me by Ji Ziyuan. Recalling the pale faces of Xia He and Shangguan Zhaoyue before I fainted, a faint smile tugged at the corner of my lips. Seeing that I was awake, the assassin bit his tongue and died. But all the evidence points to Xia He. She has been placed under house arrest. I nodded in satisfaction. In truth, the assassin was a soldier from the general's manor. Back when the Xia family estate was confiscated, the one who carried out the order was my own father. I had simply swiped the dagger back then. I never expected it would come in handy. My father is the most pragmatic man I know. Now that I can bring honor to our family, he naturally does everything he can to assist me. Getting stabbed for all this is a fair trade indeed. It wasn't a loss at all. Power is truly the only guarantee of status and survival. With this incident occurring, Zhang Tingfu's request to take a secondary wife must now be shelved. Thinking of my misfortune in my previous life, I silently mused to myself, once the matter with Xia He is resolved, Zhang Tingfu won't be able to escape either. During the time I spent recovering from my injury, Ji Ziyuan was grateful that I saved his life, and he was also concerned for the imperial heir in my womb, so he came to visit me every single day. During this time, Xia He feigned illness several more times, trying to win Ji Ziyuan's sympathy, but Ji Ziyuan never visited her once. Each time he impatiently sent her away. I had assumed that Xia He had completely lost his favor, but alas. Man proposes but heaven disposes. Xia He, who should have been at a dead end, took a desperate risk and carved out a path to survival. At the Mid-Autumn Palace banquet, Ji Ziyuan was enjoying himself with the concubines in the hall. When the wine was flowing and spirits were high, a guard came to report that Xia He had climbed to the watchtower alone, intending to prove her innocence by leaping. When Ji Ziyuan heard this, he immediately abandoned the concubines and rushed hurriedly toward the watchtower. After much bitter persuasion, Xia He still leapt from the watchtower. Ji Ziyuan caught her, in a state of sheer terror, and in doing so forgave her. Xia He had regained his favor, and the palace consorts were filled with unease. Upon hearing this news, I swallowed the bitter medicine without changing my expression. Even so, there was already a thorn in Ji Ziyuan's heart, one that would not be so easily removed. For an entire month, Xia He enjoyed his exclusive favor, basking in boundless glory. Other than visiting me, Ji Ziyuan spent all his time with her. By the time the autumn leaves withered and yellowed, my wounds had finally healed. During this period, Zhang Tingfu had repeatedly petitioned for his cousin to be granted a title. I remembered how, in my previous life, to bring her into the manor, he had laced my daily food with infertility drugs and coerced me to demote myself to a concubine for being barren. Making way for his cousin, Such despicable deeds I would certainly not tolerate in this life. But before I could even make a move, scandalous rumors about Zhang Tingfu began to spread throughout the capital. Word is he's been taking bribes, using embezzled public funds to build a gilded nest for his mistress, spending his days there in debauchery. Once this came to light, Ji Ziyuan was incensed. He ordered an immediate investigation. The person who spread these rumors must have been absolutely certain of their facts before acting. As the investigation deepened, it uncovered further scandals involving Zhang Tingfu, including forming cliques and private corruption. He thought he had gained enough power to dare treat the daughter of a general's household with such contempt. With my secret encouragement, my father barred him from our gates. Coming from a humble background, without the support of the general's household or the emperor's favor, he was nothing at all. In the end, Zhang Tingfu and his entire family, along with that mistress, were all exiled to Ninguta. Only Shangguan Zhaoyue was specially permitted to divorce him and return to the general's household. I was curious as to who possessed such influence to help Shangguan Zhaoyue escape her misery. Upon close inspection, I discovered that it was actually Xia He who intervened. That the two of them had colluded was truly beyond my expectations. I suppose Xia He wanted to win over Shangguan Zhaoyue as an ally. In her eyes, I was the one who stole Shangguan Zhaoyue's chance to be empress. Shangguan Zhaoyue surely hated me, and the enemy of my enemy is my friend. When I was 8 months pregnant, the emperor granted my stepmother permission to visit me in the palace. My stepmother was not my biological mother. My mother passed away shortly after I was born. She had never fought for anything in the household and died a lonely death. Witnessing my mother's fate, I knew that, if one wants to make a stand in this world, one must fight and strive for everything, for that is the only way. I did not look forward to my stepmother's visit, but I never expected that Shangguan Zhaoyue would accompany her. Unlike my stepmother, Shangguan Zhaoyue was uncharacteristically enthusiastic toward me. She even gifted me a tiger head hat she had embroidered herself, a small token of my sincerity. I hope you don't mind this small gesture, sister. Shangguan Zhaoyue has always been arrogant and overbearing, yet today she was uncharacteristically humble. I was suspicious of her motives and dared not take it from her directly. I had Chuzi step forward to accept it instead. Watching Chuzi place the tiger head hat into the small box by the bed, I caught a glimmer of triumph in Shangguan Zhaoyue's eyes. It seems my suspicions were correct. There is definitely something wrong with this tiger head hat. After Shangguan Zhaoyue left, I took the hat out to examine it closely. When I saw the talisman hidden in the lining, I immediately understood her scheme. Since they have chosen to be heartless, they cannot blame me for being ruthless. At the third watch that night, the palace was suddenly ablaze with light. I heard that Xia He had woken up in a panic, crying uncontrollably. Even after Ji Ziyuan summoned the imperial physicians, nothing helped. Finally, they called for a master, and it was only after drinking charmed water that the crying stopped. The master claimed there was an evil spirit in the palace, which was the cause of all this. Ji Ziyuan was furious and immediately ordered a search of the palace. Tonight was destined to be a sleepless night. I sighed and stood up, asking Chuzi to help me dress. Just as I finished putting on my outer robe, there was a commotion at the palace entrance. Ji Ziyuan entered, cradling a pitiful-looking Xia. Empress, the master said there is an evil spirit in the palace. For the safety of everyone here, step aside and let them search your chambers. Since the emperor has spoken, I naturally could not refuse. I smiled and stepped aside. Xia, he glanced at my bedside, a flash of triumph crossing her eyes. Before long, the lead eunuch pulled the tiger head hat out from the box by the bed. He removed the talisman from the lining and handed it to Ji Ziyuan, reporting, "To your majesty, we have found it." Ji Ziyuan, who had been drinking tea nearby, froze instantly. He hurriedly set down his teacup. His expression darkened instantly. Seeing this, Xia He immediately began to sob and wail. "Your majesty, Empress, I have done you no wrong. Why would you use such dark arts to harm me?" Ji Ziyuan swept the teapot and cups off the table. "Empress, the use of witchcraft is strictly forbidden in the palace. As the mistress of the 6 palaces, did you not know this?" At the emperor's fury, everyone in the room knelt in unison. Only I remained standing unmoved. Ji Ziyuan frowned in displeasure and warned me, "Empress, why doesn't your majesty take a closer look? That is nothing more than an ordinary peace talisman." Upon hearing this, Ji Ziyuan snatched the paper from the eunuch's hand. Peace talismans were common items. Ji Ziyuan naturally recognized it. Xia He's complexion changed instantly. "What peace talisman? No, that's impossible. That was supposed to be the curse you placed on me." "Sister Xia He, have you lost your mind? This is merely a peace talisman. I sought for the child in my womb." Xia He took the paper with disbelief to examine it closely before she stammered out, "Forgive me, your majesty, Empress. It was I who was mistaken." Having said that, she threw herself into Ji Ziyuan's arms, putting on a show. "Your majesty, there is no need to search further. I feel much better now." Ji Ziyuan, his heart and mind fully consumed by her, failed to notice her earlier anomaly. Just as he was about to agree, I spoke up first. "Let us finish this properly. Right now, apart from the Empress Dowager's residence, only Sister Xia He's chambers remain unsearched. Since the evil spirit hasn't been found yet, we should go and search her quarters thoroughly." Perhaps the source of the evil is hidden with you after all. No. Just as Xia He tried to refuse, Ji Ziyuan cut her off. The Empress is right. If we don't find the source of this evil, I shall have no peace of mind. Let us continue the search. Guards, resume the search. The group hurried back to Xia He's palace, but this time I was among them. At Ji Ziyuan's command, the attendants immediately began searching with haste. About the time it takes to burn half a stick of incense, an attendant finally emerged from the inner chamber clutching a cloth bundle. He approached Ji Ziyuan, trembling with fear, and dropped to his knees with a thud. Your Majesty, it would be best if you saw this yourself. This servant truly dare not speak of it. His voice was thick with palpable terror and panic. Everyone present was so frightened that they fell to their knees, myself included without exception. As I knelt along with the others, Xia He was so terrified that the color drained from her face. She crawled to Ji Ziyuan's feet, clutched the hem of his robe, and pleaded bitterly, Your Majesty, please believe me. This thing is truly not mine. But Ji Ziyuan's face remained dark and gloomy, and he kicked her away without a hint of mercy. His eyes were cold as frost, staring straight at Xia He. As he interrogated her sharply, It was found in your palace. If it isn't yours, then whose could it be? After your failed assassination attempt last time, are you trying to use this method to harm me now? I smiled inwardly. I knew that thorn had already been driven deep into Ji Ziyuan's heart, and it wouldn't be easily removed. However, the charge of regicide, Xia He dared not admit to that. She shook her head desperately in denial. It's not like that. Your Majesty, please hear me out. That is right. Today, only the general's wife and Shangguan Zhaoyue have visited the palace. Shangguan Zhaoyue even made a point to sit in my chambers for a while. It must be her. She intentionally plotted to frame me, Your Majesty. Your Majesty, Xia He sobbed and wept. That tear-streaked face was enough to stir pity in anyone who saw it. Ji Ziyuan's expression softened slightly. He asked coldly, Is this true? Xia He nodded vigorously as if kowtowing. She choked out her response. It is absolutely true. Your Majesty, the palace eunuchs and maids can all bear witness. Only Shangguan Zhaoyue came to my palace today. She must have left this behind. Seeing her so certain, Ji Ziyuan hesitated for a moment, but in the end, he chose to believe her. Guards, send a cup of poisoned wine to the general's estate. To perform witchcraft in my palace is a crime punishable by death. He didn't even consider bringing Shangguan Zhaoyue into the palace for a proper interrogation. He simply handed down her sentence. Upon hearing Ji Ziyuan's command, I did not say another word. I did not plead for Shangguan Zhaoyue, nor did I throw more mud at Xia He. Ji Ziyuan's decision said it all. He did not care about the truth. He only wanted to protect Xia He. Faced with the woman he had cherished as his white moonlight for years, his heart had softened yet again, and the alliance between Xia He and Shangguan Zhaoyue was truly fragile. At the slightest setback, it crumbled immediately. Poor Shangguan Zhaoyue became a mere scapegoat for Xia He. My profit-driven father would be even less likely to plead for her. Since she has separated from her husband and returned home, she is already a spent pawn to him. But her death is hardly unjust. Had she not colluded with Xia He to frame me, it never would have come to this. The only thing that worries me is Ji Ziyuan's attitude toward Xia He. His bias toward her is far too obvious. Unmatched by anyone else. It seems that taking down Xia He will require a more long-term plan. 3 months later, I finally went into labor and gave birth to a prince as I had hoped. Ji Ziyuan was overjoyed and immediately kept his promise by naming him the crown prince. In this way, my position was even more secure. At the baptism ceremony, Ji Ziyuan held our son as if he were a precious treasure and personally bestowed upon him the name Rong. After all, he was his first child and a legitimate son at that, so his adoration was only natural. Yet Xia He, standing to the side, gripped her fists tightly. Seeing her expression, I knew right away that she must be wondering why, despite receiving his favor for so long, there was still no movement in her own belly. As for that answer, it seems it is time to let her know. On the day Xia He sent someone outside the palace to secretly seek medical help, I turned a blind eye and allowed them to pass, and even lent a helping hand by ensuring a renowned physician was delivered right to her. My scheming was not in vain. Xia He finally discovered that someone had been dosing her with infertility medicine and that she would never be able to conceive in this lifetime. But ironically, the first person she suspected was me. Early this morning, Xia He stormed into my palace with a murderous aura, ignoring everyone trying to stop her, and drew a dagger pointing it at me. Tell me, was it you? Her eyes were bloodshot, a glint of madness flashing in their depths. Chuzi was startled by her deranged appearance and quickly stepped in front of me to protect me. I, however, waved my hand calmly, ordering them all to step aside. Coming from a military family, I have always excelled in horsemanship and archery. It would not be easy for her to hurt me. Only when there was no one left in the room but Xia He and me did I slowly speak up. It seems you already know, but rest assured, I had absolutely nothing to do with this. I locked my gaze onto Xia He's eyes, which were filled with suspicion and rage. I continued to explain. You became sterile because you drank contraceptive soup with ingredients that were far too potent, but you took those decoctions before you were even named a concubine. I hadn't even entered the palace yet at that time. Upon hearing this, Xia He's previously furious face suddenly froze, her hands began to tremble slightly, and her grip on the dagger slowly loosened. Finally, she slowly lowered the blade. Seeing that she had calmed down a bit, I proceeded. You might want to think this over carefully. There was no one else in the harem at the time. Who else could have interfered? Who could have poisoned you? At this point, I paused for a moment, giving Xia He enough time to think it through. Seeing her look of bewilderment, I continued. You must realize you were living directly in the Emperor's private quarters. Whose hand could reach that far? Even the Emperor couldn't do anything about it. With my little nudge, Xia He had a sudden epiphany. She blurted out. It was the Empress Dowager. Seeing that she wasn't entirely dull, I offered a meaningful smile and added one more thing. Do you think the Emperor knew? As soon as I said this, Xia He's face turned deathly pale. She had willingly committed herself to Ji Ziyuan without status or title for years, so there were naturally some feelings involved. Yet with something like this having happened, she simply couldn't imagine just how much Ji Ziyuan knew about it. No. Impossible. She shook her head stubbornly, but the despair in her eyes betrayed her true thoughts. She believed it. I ignored Xia He as she hid her face and wept, and slowly walked out of the room. Ronger must be awake by now. I should go check on him. Xia He is not stupid. If she thinks about it carefully, she will understand. As the daughter of a convicted criminal, yet able to stay by Ji Ziyuan's side and receive favor for years, the Empress Dowager did not interfere or ask questions, surely because she knew Xia He was infertile and would never bear the royal family a child of a condemned slave, so she allowed the Emperor to indulge himself at ease. It is good that she can figure it out. Once she understands, it will also save me a lot of effort. On the day of Ronger's first month celebration, I specifically invited the Empress Dowager to attend. Regarding her own eldest grandson, the Empress Dowager was quite graceful about it, attending in full regalia. During the banquet, I carefully scooped a bowl of green stalk rice porridge for the Empress Dowager, but before I could hand the porridge to her, Xia He snatched it away first. She offered it to the Empress Dowager, borrowing my flowers to present to Buddha. Your Majesty, this is your favorite green stalk rice porridge. The Empress Dowager glanced at Ji Ziyuan's expression, seeing the hidden anticipation in his eyes, and this time accepted it with a lukewarm attitude, saying indifferently, You have a thoughtful heart. Xia He smiled, humbly saying, To show my filial respect to you is my duty as your subject. The Empress Dowager finally revealed a genuine smile, scooped up a spoonful of the porridge, and prepared to bring it to her mouth. I quickly stepped forward and knocked the porcelain bowl from her hand, falling to my knees to beg for mercy. Mother, you must not drink it. This porridge is poisoned. Upon hearing this, the Empress Dowager's expression changed drastically, and she hurriedly called for an imperial physician to investigate. Meanwhile, Xia He glared at me with pure malice. The Empress Dowager said coldly, How did you know there was poison in the porridge? Since it was poison, why did you serve the porridge to me in the first place? Faced with her questioning, I spoke with composure. The porridge was not poisoned at first, but it became poisonous after Xia He took it. The poison was hidden beneath her fingernails. The imperial physician hurried to examine it, and it was exactly as I said. The porridge in the serving bowl was untainted, but the bowl presented to the Empress Dowager was poisoned, and the poison matched the residue under Xia He's fingernails. The Empress Dowager was seething with rage. She pointed at Xia He and berated her, drag her away, and beat her to death. Ji Ziyuan could not bear it, and he quickly rose to plead, Mother, please calm your anger. Xia He surely did not mean to do this. Even though he set aside his imperial dignity to beg for her, he could not stop Xia He from sealing her own fate. I did mean to do it. It was this old witch who made me unable to conceive. I wanted to kill her. Her face was twisted with malice, completely consumed by her hatred for the Empress Dowager. At this, even Ji Ziyuan stood there stunned. How did you know? He stammered. But he did not receive an answer from Xia He. He only received her mocking laugh. Ji Ziyuan, you were an accomplice too. You knew about this all along, and you helped her hurt me. Ji Ziyuan had no words to say, his eyes merely turning red, looking at Xia He with a hint of remorse. Seeing that Xia He had confessed to her own crime, the Empress Dowager did not hesitate further, decisively giving the order, Guards, drag her away. This time, Ji Ziyuan did not speak to plead for her again. Xia He, however, was still screaming in defiance. You destroyed my entire family, and you made me barren. Even as a ghost, I won't let you off. Ji Ziyuan closed his eyes, unwilling to look at her angry face anymore. The perfectly good full-month celebration ended in such a hurried mess, but that's all right. A secure throne will be the best full-month gift I can give to Ronger. Empress Xia He. Ji Ziyuan became increasingly depressed. He rarely even set foot in the harem. He visited my palace more than anywhere else to see Ronger and talk to me about affairs in the palace. I also dutifully brew him a calming soup every single day. Gradually, Ji Ziyuan became more and more dependent on me. Only when he was with me could he get a peaceful night's sleep, yet he still passed away at the age of 30. He does not know that the sedative soup he drinks every day, combined with the incense I burn in my chambers, is a deadly poison. All these years, he has wallowed in the sorrow of losing his beloved, neglecting the affairs of state, and was no longer fit to be emperor. I am merely ridding the world of a tyrant. After Ji Ziyuan passed away, Rong'er ascended the throne. He was still just a child, so the officials, led by my father, begged me to rule from behind the curtain. From that point on, I began my 10-year reign. During this time, the great Xia grew strong and prosperous, and the people lived in peace and contentment.